Good morning, everyone. I love you guys already. First of all, let me say thank you to the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, Jim Rooney and his team, for making this space available and for his team's professionalism in working with us to execute this morning. Second, let me say thank you to the Mass Gaming Commission, Mr. Steve Crosby, the chairman, the members of the commission, and just as importantly, Ms. Janice Riley, who I just told someone, absent her constant engagement, I'm not sure this morning could have happened. And last but not least, let me say thank you to each and every one of you who've given up a portion of your day to be with us this morning. Before I offer very brief remarks and introduce the chairman, let me do one housekeeping matter. Last week, many of you may have heard, former City Councilor Bruce Bowling passed away. Yesterday, or last night, was the wake, and today are the funeral services. Steve and I had a conversation, and we contemplated postponing today, but given the champion that Bruce was on issues of diversity and inclusion for all of his adult life, but in particular the last dozen years or so as he headed the Mass Alliance for Small Contractors, we recognized that the best way to honor not only his life but his legacy was to continue on an issue that was so very important to him and that he would have asked that we move forward. And so, in deference and out of respect to former City Councilor Bruce Bowling, I just ask that we take a moment of silence to remember him, his legacy, his contributions to the City of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you. Today is a very exciting day. You know, to quote Pope John Paul II, our future starts not tomorrow, but today. And that is what today's educational forum focused on diversity and inclusion is all about. It's how do you look forward to tomorrow, look forward to your own futures, and start planning today so that if you are seeking opportunity, you might figure out the best way to position your business or you as an individual to seek and succeed in obtaining it. As I mentioned, today's event could not happen without the Mass Gaming Commission, but let me also thank my colleague in state government, Reggie Nunley, and the members of his team, Michelle Morin, of the Supplier Diversity Office, for working incredibly hard to make this day happen. Let me say thank you to the folks from the state who are helping with the sign-in, Tina Andrews, Nani, and Maria Gonzalez. Without their efforts, you might still be trying to figure out how do you get in here and may have drank all the coffee and ate all the muffins as you waited. Today is a labor of love because when the legislation was drafted and had diversity and inclusion in it, we know that it takes many things to move legislative language to reality. Today is the first day in which we start to make that real, in partnership with the Mass Gaming Commission, but more importantly, in partnership with each and every one of you. The panels that will go on today will hopefully whet your appetite for further information and knowledge, and you will start to pay close attention to the work of the Gaming Commission, not through the media, but through actually logging onto their website and keeping track of what they're doing. They are probably the most transparent quasi-governmental agency in the Commonwealth. Let me also say to you real quickly that there are index cards, I believe, at the end of each table. What we will do is this: if you have questions for any of the panels, and there are two of them, you should fill out an index card and submit. I believe there's a box somewhere up front here, in which if there are questions for any individual panel, we'll take those before the panel concludes. And then, or if you have questions for the Gaming Commission, because at 12 o'clock the Gaming Commission will go into a public meeting, they will then answer questions that are directed towards them. I hope you find what you're looking for today, and more importantly, even if you don't find fully what you're looking for, I hope, again, your appetite is whet enough so that you start to pay attention, monitor, and again, figure out how to best position yourself. That's what today is really all about. With that said, let me introduce my partner for today's event, a man who's shown incredible leadership, not only at the Gaming Commission, but on issues of diversity and inclusion, the chairman of the Mass Gaming Commission, Mr. Steve Crosby.
Thank you very much, Ron, and thank you for putting this together. You mentioned, because you were instrumental in it, that the legislation which enables the Mass Gaming Commission does make a couple of very, very pointed and significant references to issues of diversity and inclusion. You had a lot to do with that, but as you said, it takes a village to make a piece of legislation, so there are others who are responsible. But the law goes on to talk very clearly about the criticality of a diverse workforce and the criticality of diverse supplier-vendor relationships. Those are for two areas where absolutely for sure we will focus, and we have a mandate to do that. But we also have a mandate from the legislature to go beyond the particulars in the law to look for other values. And the Commission has made a clear commitment to thinking as broadly and as creatively about issues of diversity and inclusion as we possibly can. I've said in other contexts that Massachusetts, sometimes for good and sometimes for ill, has been a leader in issues of diversity and inclusion, all the way from King Philip's War to the gay marriage decision. We have led the way sometimes, as I say, sometimes for ill and sometimes for good. But we want to continue to lead the way, and we have an opportunity with this Gaming Commission and with the advent of this new industry to really think creatively about how to leverage this opportunity to accomplish a whole host of goods, one of which is to incorporate in really fundamental and transformative ways the values of diversity and inclusion in what we're doing. You can do these things well, you can do them with happy talk, you can do them with just symbols, or you can do them really seriously and fundamentally and with an impact. And we would like very hard to work with our partners at the community level and at the developer level to figure out how to implement these values in a really powerful and transformative way. The timing is just right. The gaming process, the application process is underway. We actually have 3 companies, a couple of which I think are probably here, who have already given us their $400,000 non-refundable deposit, which is real money. That means they are applicants. We don't think any pretenders are going to put down $400,000. Starting the middle of next month, we will release a very comprehensive request for application phase 1, which is basically a suitability check, a background check for corporate, financial, and personal stability, resources, and integrity. And we have included, by the way, issues of race and ethnicity and gender in some of the background information at all levels of an organization that we are interested in. Those RFA1s, the background checks, will be completed by potential applicants, by potential bidders, for over probably 90 days, from mid-October to mid-January. We will then take those background check forms and spend what will probably be something like 6 months. That's how serious a background check these things are. Going through the background checks and making sure that every principal involved in a particular proposal passes muster, is ultimately suitable. While that 6 months is going on, and in fact starting probably next month, we will be writing the specific rules and regs that will govern the actual site-specific application. If you pass RFA 1, you become an applicant, you are suitable, you can then submit your formal proposal to us, which is when you'll see all the glitz and the traffic plans and the number of slot tables and so on and so forth. And we will be writing the regs that will oversee that over the course of the next probably 3 to 6 months. And that's where we will need to incorporate the kind of best practice that we learned from you at this session and others like it. We can ask our bidders to do pretty much whatever we want to ask our bidders to do, so long as we believe it's in the best interest of the Commonwealth and consistent with and pursuant to the values that are in our legislation. So now is the time for us to learn things that we can ask of our bidders that will maximize in fundamental ways those values of diversity and inclusion which are in the law and which are in our policy commitment. I think that's it. We would then, we expect, just so you know the process, we expect that by the middle of next spring to early summer, we will have the proposals out. People will be detailing their final applications. They'll be working with host communities to have host community agreements. They'll be working with surrounding communities to mitigate the impacts of their proposals on the surrounding communities. And sometime starting as soon as next fall, more likely the following spring, we will be making licensing decisions. So we're full at it right now. This is the perfect time. This is, I think, our 6th educational forum. They are designed principally to be educational for the commissioners, which you see here sitting in front. Actually, let me just introduce Commissioner Enrique Zuniga, Commissioner Bruce Stebbins, Commissioner Gail Cameron, and Commissioner Jim McHugh. Great group of folks that I've had the pleasure to get to know and to work with. But we also thought that this is being streamed on the web, it'll be archived on our website, through us, we can educate the public about issues like community, compulsive gambling, community mitigation, and diversity and inclusion. This is our 6th educational forum. It's our best attended by a long shot, even though we ended up inadvertently competing with Bruce's funeral. So I'm tremendously pleased that you all have voted with your feet and by your presence here demonstrated to us the importance of these issues to you and therefore to us. Thanks to all of you for your help. Thank you, Ron, for putting this together, and we look forward to all this info.
I would like to ask the moderator, Ms. Georgiana Melendez, and the panel members for the Workforce Diversity Panel to make their way up. And as they are doing so, let me just give you a quick overview of the purposes of this panel. The purposes really are twofold. One, they're designed to educate individuals who are interested in employment in this thing we call gaming, whether during the construction phase or during the operations phase, is designed to start to impart information to get you thinking about what do you need to do between now and the moment the go button is pushed to be ready to participate. And then secondly, it is also designed to help the commission in its educational purposes to understand how they might, from a regulatory policy framework, craft regulation that facilitates maximization of access and opportunity. With that said, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Georgiana Melendez. She is a capable moderator. She is the executive director of the Commonwealth Compact, a good friend of mine, and has shown a tremendous commitment to issues of diversity in the workspace. You will have a great panel. Thank you.
Good morning. We do have a great panel planned, and it was pulled together by the Office of Access and Opportunity. I promise it's quality. We've done some prepping so that we have some pretty tight timelines, so I'm going to play the role of the timekeeper so that we do keep it to an hour and that it does allow for questions and audience participation at the end. And so the way that I'm going to do that is be somewhat obnoxious because I'm on the side. I have like a little red flag. So when I wave the red flag, that means you have 2 minutes left in your presentation. We did not hand out bios, and we figured the best way for us to handle this would be to have everyone on the panel introduce themselves, and I will start. Georgiana Melendez, I'm the Executive Director of the Commonwealth Compact, which is a workforce diversity initiative. And its goal is to ensure that both the pipeline in the workforce and the leadership positions represent people of color in the ranks. We have not done a great job of that as a Commonwealth, and so we have an initiative that tries to pull together all of the different forces that are working towards that goal so that you may have access to everything that's available in the state. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Andrea Lang. I am the Director of Compliance at DCAM. At DCAM, and being the Director of Compliance, what we're attempting to do and what we are doing is ensuring that minority businesses and women businesses are being exposed to opportunities within construction from the very beginning. And it has opened my eyes a great deal to the representation that we can help bridge various gaps. And our hope today with this panel is to help you to identify how you can address some of those various gaps. And we have been becoming quite successful in doing so through various partnerships with agencies in the state.
Good morning, Lisa Berry Barbosa.
Maybe come closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. Currently live in the state of Rhode Island, but born and raised and work now in Massachusetts as Director of Human Resources for St. Anne's Hospital. It's part of the Steward Healthcare family. I also worked as an adjunct professor at UMass Dartmouth, working in their MBA program, teaching HR and leadership program. I've worked 19 years in human resources management, and prior to working for Steward, I worked as the Director of Organizational Development Diversity Programs at Foxwoods Resort Casino. I was recently married in Las Vegas, which I doubt is the reason why I was asked to serve on this panel. I think it is more to the fact that I did work with the team to complete opening the MGM grant at Foxwoods, and coupled with my education and my HR experience, I hope to be a valued contributor to this forum.
Good morning. My name is Mark Eisenberg. I am the Vice President for Workforce Development and Technology Services with Action for Boston Community Development, the Boston's community action organization, anti-poverty organization. I have spent half my life working in that organization, so I won't tell you how many years that is, but it's a lot. And in doing so, have worked with various industries in creating employment, workforce development opportunities for low and moderate income populations in the city of Boston, and am always looking for innovation in the kind of program services we're able to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. So diversity on the panel in terms of the perspective they bring, this is not meant to be the entire conversation. It's meant to be the beginning, to get you thinking about what you're going to do, how you're going to approach it, and make sure that this is part of every stage of planning and implementation. So what we've asked the panelists to do is to each speak for about 10 minutes on the particular perspective that they bring, and then we will ask each of them a question. And at the end, we'll ask the audience to ask a question or two, depending on how much time we have left. And if you have burning questions that we don't answer, we'll defer back to the commission in terms of if there are any next steps. And I would always say go to their website to look for any future forums. So the first person to present is Dr. Lisa Berry Barbosa.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start off with a definition of diversity that I'm particularly fond of, and that is that it is the variety of ethnic, racial, gender, cultural, and other perspectives available to reach organizational goals. This was from the New Haven Consulting Group in Connecticut that we worked closely with on some diversity initiatives that we had in Foxwoods. There are some interesting statistics. They're a little dated, but I think they're still very compelling and puts perspective as to where we are today. Did you know that African Americans comprise of 11% of the workforce? Or how about there are over 13% of the US population that speaks a language other than English? 62% of new entrants in the workforce will be women or minorities. And it is projected that the Asian American population will increase fourfold by the year 2020. America is truly a mosaic of varying cultures and points of view, and sometimes they come together to serve a specific purpose. Organizations cannot afford to discriminate as a method of exclusion and limit its talent pool. In order to create an acceptable work environment that is welcoming to all, we need to provide some advisement to organizations, to the commission, and to the viable and prospective candidates. For an organization looking to attract this talent, you need to publicly communicate the values, mission, and objectives of the institution, particularly those that support diversity initiatives and inclusion. In keeping job requirements objective, focus rather on the selection criteria that are related to job knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for prospective employees to do the job successfully. This will help to promote fairness. Once on the job, orientate all new team members and acquaint them to the informal support networks and the development structure within that organization. Through open forums and policies, empower all the employees to influence the work product, encourage frank and open discussion of concerns, issues, and problems, and consider diverse points of view regarding resolutions and concerns and resolution to those problems. It's not just about creating the illusion of inclusion. The organizations need to align the values and objectives with that corporation with the education programs, the hiring practices, career development, and promotional policies. Diversity and inclusion programs should be promoted, and progress with implementing aspects of those programs into everyday practice must be celebrated and rewarded publicly. Through these efforts, the organization began to create a common language of success, despite the differences in the workforce. Viable candidates need to do their research, understand job requirements and conditions of employment. The Connecticut Gaming Commission, for instance, go through a very serious background check, very thorough. They will look at your credit history, your criminal background, your driving record. They will verify your education, past and current employment. The casino environment is a very adult environment. It's smoking and drinking and swearing, and obviously gambling is alive and well. People need to consider this seriously before applying to the casino. To work in, for instance, a tables games, a deal as a dealer can be very lucrative, but one needs to consider the time and the rigor that goes into preparing for that position successfully. And they may go without regular pay for several weeks while in training. The Commission needs to consider working with transportation authorities to make arrangements for public transportation to make ease and availability to provide employees with the means to get to and from work. Work with the local media, marketing, and PR firms. Collaborate efforts to attract diverse workforce while promoting to attract a diverse consumer base. The Commission also needs to partner with the community and learning organizations who can help foster the pipeline of diverse and local talent. For example, we worked very closely with the Adult Education Committee in Norwich, Connecticut. There was a very strong commission to be able to bring some of the different socioeconomic populations into the workforce. Many of them didn't have English as their first language, and created a tie and a bridge between creating a value in a system for them to learn the language of the workforce and make them viable candidates at the casino. Thank you.
So Lisa, how did MGM address the communities of the unemployed, the underemployed, the limited English speakers, and the other limitations and skill sets?
We took the program, the ESOL program, English as a Second or Other Language, and we worked with the adult education. That was one of the committees we worked with, and we created a curriculum so that people within the casino at Foxwoods who were applying for positions at the MGM Grand, or those who were looking to get into the MGM Grand, would know, first of all, how to apply for a position. Many of these individuals didn't even know how to get into the casino, understood the type of jobs, the language of being an ambassador in the casino, because casino is an intangible business. You don't walk away. I mean, people drop their money there and they keep coming back. And there's a reason for that. They want that experience. And if the individuals don't have the confidence to be able to speak the language of customer service and be true ambassadors of the casino, then they will fail. And it didn't matter how many numbers we had, our diverse numbers were strong, but the failure rate was just as high. So this is absolutely necessary to retain that talent, that diverse talent within the organization.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you. Boston's low-income, diverse workforce has an unprecedented unemployment rate. According to 2010 American Community Survey, the unemployment rate in Massachusetts for African Americans is 19%, twice the rate for whites in the labor force. The unemployment rate for Hispanic Latinos is 17%. And too often, these adults disengage from labor market struggles, struggle with isolation from the community, with a severely constricted outlook on career success. The challenges facing low-income and moderate-income diverse workforce in Boston is often characterized by a high level of economic stress, needs for social service assistance, and multiple work barriers. Basic needs include the rising cost of basic necessities. Many low-income people struggle to meet the basic needs such as food, heat, and housing to live in Massachusetts. Housing instability. Serious housing instability is perhaps the most successful factor for low-income populations wanting to work. Transportation that Lisa mentioned. Many low-income people are dependent on public transportation to get to work, and given their low incomes, most need help with simple things like bus and subway fares. And child care. Low-income people with young children are always in need to help with help in arranging child care. Despite the presence of strong community colleges and nonprofit organizations in Massachusetts, Massachusetts residents appear to be cut off from the skill building and support services which can change their life trajectories. For over 50 years, community action organizations like Action for Boston Community Development have been providing skill-building trainings for low-income, low-skilled, and diverse populations, many of them called New Bostonians. While they struggle to make their ends meet in Boston, many of them are eager to get jobs that will move them out of poverty. According to a survey conducted by ABCD, over half of the respondents of that survey stated that they needed more education and job-related training to find a job with a living wage. Community action organizations work with low-income individuals living at or about 125% of the federal poverty limit. In 2012, that means an annual income of $28,000 for a family of four. Low-income families often face a series of interconnected challenges such as lack of health care, low educational attainment, unemployment, homelessness, and food insecurity that resonate across generations of families. And community action organizations actively work to meet these multifaceted challenges by connecting families to a spectrum of support services, from food pantries to non-cash benefits to child care and financial literacy. Additionally, many community action organizations, their clients possess low educational attainment levels and lack training or specialized skills that allow them to gain gainful employment. So community action organizations work to connect families to the educational services and training programs that provide them with the necessary skills and credentials to allow those clients to obtain self-sufficiency and successfully overcome poverty. Community action organizations serve a diverse client base. In Boston, ABCD alone served 85,000 individuals in 2012. 36% of those who identified themselves as Black, 25% as white, 15% as Asian, and 21% as other. Additionally, 17% of the clients listed themselves as Latino. ABCD's workforce development programs connect low-income individuals to income support, case management, and retention services to help them achieve long-term economic security. All services offered by the organization are offered in an integrated approach where individuals can take advantage of multiple bundled services to help them become economically secure. As a result, ABCD alone has a track record of job placement exceeding 75%. ABCD delivers the following services in a unified, integrated approach with the core services of job readiness, career development, financial literacy, and public benefits access. And those services reinforce each other and provide a multifaceted approach to increasing economic income for the household. Those services include job readiness skills with an emphasis on computer literacy and life skills to help clients become job ready, wraparound support services where clients can access a wide variety of programs and services to help themselves and their families towards economic security. Programs such as a Women in Non-Traditional Occupation, which prepares low-income women to enroll and prepare themselves for registered apprenticeship programs in the building trades field. Retention services, where case managers and clients keep in touch on a regular basis to check in and support clients where needed. Financial literacy classes and financial coaching, which is a program to help low-income clients increase their assets, and college degree and certificate programs and preparation programs as many of the clients matriculate on to community colleges or further education. And as Lisa had mentioned, the need for adult basic education, including adult basic ed, GED preparation, and English for speaker of other language programs. And finally, public benefits enrollment, including access to everything from food stamps, low-income fuel assistance, mass health, among some others. So the role of community action organizations is a pivotal point in moving low and moderate income populations to greater degrees of success. But it doesn't do that alone. What I would suggest, food for thought for the commission, and the commission is to really be complimented in undertaking these forums at this early juncture, is that depending upon the location of the casinos that we're going to be seeing, community action organizations in particular are recommending the creation of local advisory boards, which can include the local workforce investment board, can include the community action organization, the labor exchange organizations of the one-stop career center system, community colleges, the adult basic education network. Therefore, the local advisory board is in a position to advise the Gaming Commission on how to best serve and provide jobs to the local low and moderate income, underemployed and unemployed people in the casino industry. The local advisory board will also facilitate the partnerships and collaborations amongst the local community organizations. And I would also include in every region throughout Massachusetts, there are coalitions of community-based organizations like the Job Training Alliance in Boston. Statewide, there is the Mass Workforce Alliance, and including the Massachusetts Department of Labor Workforce Development, who's in a fine position to make additional state resources available, will all be helpful in creating a very, very diverse workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. basically the essence of his message is that you're not alone in doing this. There are organizations that dedicate themselves to supporting this community, and they are access points for you. I also, part of our phone calls included a discussion about reminding you that there is a spectrum of talent. So we are focused particularly on this group that Mark was mentioning, but we also have, as present in this room, professionals, folks who are seasoned, that you should be thinking about all along the way. Architects, engineers, consultants, folks who are seasoned, talented individuals of color and women who haven't been traditionally picked for senior roles. So that's just a reminder as you're thinking about this. So I'm gonna, actually, Mark, I have a question, a follow-up question for you, if that's okay. Can you give a specific example in the stuff that you mentioned of a partnership between industry and your organization that helped with prepping the workforce?
A number of years ago, when the financial services sector was doing particularly well in Boston, there was a recognized need in the financial services industry to diversify its workforce. And with some of the leadership through the State Street Bank Corporation and the Community Action Organization and a few other nonprofit organizations, we created the Financial Services Academy that included the Adult Ed Network, that included the community colleges, that included community-based organizations. And essentially what we did, and the financial institutions actually stepped up and funded the training of individuals for a series of entry-level jobs in the financial services sector. ABCD alone just completed what became a 5-year project in the community health worker field of training community health workers who work as public educators in hospitals, in health centers throughout Massachusetts. And on the policy side, we were able to work with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and other local public health organizations to establish a licensing bureau for community health workers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And if, for those of us who know the inside baseball, we were actually able and successful at getting the Federal Department of Labor to recognize community health workers as a bona fide field and actually include description of what community health workers do within a particular industry. I mentioned women in the building trades, so what we are currently involved in is working with any number of organizations and a number of the local unions to prepare women into an industry-sponsored preparation program so that they can get on a registered apprenticeship track. And finally, you can flag me if you want.
It's okay. We're still doing good.
And a graduate of one of the things I've not talked about are young people. And young people go through programs of career exploration and career preparedness in organizations like ABCD. We worked with a number of gangbangers, say, in Boston, in the building trades and preparing them. And one of the proudest moments that I have as a person who put this program together, and one of the proudest moments of a young man, Jose, who became my greatest recruitment vehicle for young people, is to see his name upstairs in the convention center as one of the young persons who came out of a gang, got a job as a carpenter, and was successful and his claim to fame was being able to show his parents that his name was up there on the pedestal in the lobby as you walk into the convention center here. And eventually got married, had children, and continues to be engaged with us at recruiting and telling his story to other young people that we continue to work with.
Thank you, Mark.
Those are the milestones. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea?
Okay. Once again, good morning. So we've heard from Lisa about the definition of diversity. Mark was kind enough to share with us how ABCD has helped to address some gaps to get the pool to see the opportunities that are out there. So last night I thought, okay, what message do I really want to get out there? What message can we share that DCAM has been able to achieve through partnerships and assistance from many? Because we don't do it alone. And that's a message that would need to be out there. That state our partners within each other and helping to address and identify all various roadblocks that can help expand the diversity and achieving what we all wish to achieve, and that's why we're sitting here this morning. How do we do it? How do we do it? On our standpoint is education. Education on both internally and externally. And so I'm here today, this morning, to say, on a construction perspective, as you're viewing those applications and knowing that you have people that are really honestly wanting to pursue this based on the checks that you've received, right? And the extensive credit checks that we've heard about. Once we do that, then what? How do we get people to know that there are opportunities that will be offered to them throughout Massachusetts? So one, I would say we need to know our demographics. We need to know within the communities that surround wherever the casinos may be built, who's living there now? Do they have jobs or do they have careers? We also would want to make sure that people aren't just being funneled through an apprenticeship program because we heard there's a solid way to make a decent money, but actually really want these jobs as careers. Because as a career, then the word is positive and the word gets out to everyone. Construction companies and firms are more apt to want to partner with minority businesses. Minority businesses begin seeing, you know what? I can get these jobs through the state, and I can be successful, and I can grow, and I can pay forward. And I believe that that's really the goal, is paying forward. Someone gave a firm an opportunity, a person an opportunity, and it is for us to help you to acknowledge you too can then give someone else that opportunity. Whether it's a woman, and I understand in construction, that was not the world for us, but it is today, all right? We've heard different statistics. We know that goals happen and they work. So for those of you in the audience who are minority businesses, who are women businesses, what you may want to ask yourself is, how am I marketing myself? How am I getting that word out about my company, about my firm? Who am I connecting with? Who are my partners in the state that maybe can be a vehicle to help me identify some of the opportunities? Well, there are many. We have SDO. They are wonderful in making sure that there are networking opportunities, both on a construction side with the firms and also with smaller MBE or WBE firms. How else do I find out? Read the newspaper, right? Go on websites. Learn what the rules are, what the guidelines are, and how can I strengthen myself. We have now other businesses and companies that are MBE and WBE that are helping each other in doing that and addressing what is my next step. So the importance to me is definitely making sure that everyone feels as though they're getting a piece of the pie and not giving up the piece of the pie. And we have seen that that has been successful on the procurement side through 149 because we now have data. We have data to show, okay, when you have goals, when you know who your demographics are, who are within the trades that fall within construction, that we can make it achievable. And it's with that data we can then say, okay, and then what were some of the roadblocks? And how do we address those roadblocks so that for the next line of opportunities, such as the Gaming Commission at present, how do we expand that and how do we make it better? I ask the commission to also think about, when I'm looking at policies and creating policies, what's the con to that? And then try to put in place some mechanisms so that those cons aren't there any longer, so that you can have more minority businesses and women businesses applying for these various construction jobs. Arming yourself and understanding what that pool is, knowing that there are apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs, and understanding the process. There's another roadblock that we have, getting people to understand what the true process is, and that's both in the industry and out of the industry for minority businesses and women businesses. But we have them out there. They're there. So how do we also maybe let 10,000 people know of opportunities? It's called partnerships. It's called speaking to each other and creating those partnerships to make sure that the word gets out. I guess I'm trying to make sure that we all walk away with understanding you're not taking from anyone. You're actually adding. And as long as that pool gets improved and as long as you add, then of course you're making more opportunities versus, but what about me? Okay? It's changing that idea and changing that thought. It's no longer what about me, but how about me and how can I do it? I've gone through ABCD for their pre-apprenticeship program. But now what? What are my next steps? So also making sure that we're bridging in that area. So at DCAM, we have begun, once again, we have tremendous support. We have tremendous support with access and opportunity and opening doors. This is what I thought of last night. This is in someone's office that really made me sit back and say, how do we do that? How do we open the doors to the access and the opportunities that are availed? And no better way than knowing your audience and seeing where the disconnect is. And the disconnect in most cases is taking away fear. The disconnect in most cases is getting people to understand this isn't a job, it's a career. This is, if you put something in yourself, then there will be something at the other end. So when I'm going through my pre-apprenticeship program, when I'm going through my apprenticeship program, maybe I'm going into various unions. It's not a job for me, it's a career. I need to put my best foot forward, both on an employee standpoint and the employer. So that is, am I flash? So with that being said, hopefully I've helped you to identify some areas that would be useful tools for you ahead of time to be able to avail these various opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I really hated to even put up the red flag. I want to just actually repeat a point that you made so that I can underscore it, bold it, whatever I can do. I'm going to tweet it later. These are jobs that don't yet exist. Therefore, they're no one's job. There's no entitlement program. Everyone should have equal access at the opportunities that are becoming available as they become available. That's the point of the panel. That's the point of the policies and the regulations. This is about equity. And I will also say that a successful business is one that is both diverse and inclusive. I have a question for you. What policy tools will be available for casino operators in this area that provides clarity of purpose and clarity of implementation, so the expectations?
Expectations. Once again this morning, just as a brief conversation with someone, I said, well, first I guess you have to think about procurement. What method are you going? And what we have, once again, is the data for 149 at DCAM. But more importantly, for this to be successful and what policies should be put in place, for us at this present moment, what has really helped us are executive orders, ordinance, having legislation on the books, something that we can refer to, something that we can hold everyone pretty much to a reminder. Ooh, this is here, okay? You asked to get this work, and by saying I would like this work, this is what I'll do. And we're there to remind you, you got the work. So we have to make sure you're doing what you said that you would do. And that would be the most important, one of the most important aspects is to make sure that you have something for your compliance unit or for whom others to be able to refer back to when you have to remind people. This is what you said you would do, and this is what we're wanting you to do, to make sure that you're able to then get business again with the state, because we are all partners in achieving construction.
Thank you. I also want to go back on the definition of diversity and make sure that even though we've been emphasizing people of color and women, this is about all underrepresented groups, and I apologize for not including that as part of my definition up front. Let's just thank the panel for their initial contributions so far. And I didn't see anyone walking up to the box to put in a card, but if you have a card, please bring it up. And I'll read the question, and feel free to just bring them up, and if you want to leave them right here. And as we go through, we can start asking them. Thank you. So, Steve?
Is this working? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Mark, is ABCD, are there regional organizations like ABCD that serve all of the state? You talk about community action organizations?
Yes. In Massachusetts, there are 25 community action organizations covering from the tip of the Cape all the way out to Pittsfield. And they are coordinated through the Massachusetts Community Action Program organization, initial funding, and some of the seed funding from that comes through the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, so they're heavily involved in this as well.
And before you switch, I think we're doing some things that I think we need to interface, we want you all to know about. And Commissioner Stebbins wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. I think, Mark, to some of the points you raised about trying to find a way to get collaboration between career centers, workforce investment boards, regional employment boards. We've had several discussions with the Coalition of the Community Colleges, who are formalizing a job training program. They're basing it off of a curriculum used by a community college near Atlantic City, which has done casino training for obviously a number of years. It's nice, first of all, to see the community colleges come together. That's not traditionally been their track record in Massachusetts, but we're happy that they're working together on this, and their hope is at the time a casino license is awarded, the nearest community college then becomes kind of the lead driver in creating that job opportunity and that job training piece. So love to follow up with you is they've created these regional partnerships in the 3 defined casino regions. I think, connecting them with the community action councils in that neighborhood, I think, again, we'll be able to drive people, begin to funnel them into these programs.
Could I comment?
Absolutely.
One of the things, and this is not to throw rocks at community colleges, although I could, is that generally what we find, if you really analyze the data of community college success, both for certificate programs as well as associate degree programs, is that it generally takes a lot longer for individuals to be successful in their community college experience because they're positioned as educators and are not positioned to provide the wraparound services necessary that will help the populations that we're talking about be successful. And so that's why the partnerships between organizations like community action organizations, as well as the community college system, and other organizations in the workforce development field become critically important to ensure successful completion of that community college experience in a derived part of time. College experiences generally end up resulting almost in double of the time and high failure rates when the wraparound type services are not provided. But when they are provided, you have unbelievable success.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's,
Mr. Eisenberg, can you be more specific as to what those wraparound services may mean?
Those wraparound services run the gamut of temporary employment assistance, job readiness assistance, readiness to learn. So as Andrea has talked about in terms of it's not enough just to educate individuals about the job prospects and the expectations, but it becomes critically important to ready the populations that we serve to learn, to prepare them to learn, to understand what does it really take to fill out a FAFSA to get money to be able to continue their education. So that full gamut, as well as the basic needs, childcare, transportation, all the things that I enumerated earlier become critically important. Those are not within the community college mandate. They are in our mandate.
Mark, I have a follow-up question to that. One of my former hats was that I was a director of a transition to work program at a CAP agency. And in my experience, there were way more individuals needing access to the program than there were slots. And I'm going to assume that that's still true. Is that?
That's certainly true.
So do you have any thoughts about how partnerships may evolve or relationships could evolve to make sure that there's adequate programming for the needs that will come about with the establishment of a casino?
The casino work it's a new industry in Massachusetts.
I can't hear you. You have to come to the
Because
mic.
the casinos represent an entirely new industry in Massachusetts. So that we're at the stage where we're going to begin to prepare people for entrance. But then you have the ongoing development. It will become in the best interest of the casino operators to continue to work with us on incumbent worker training. Not everybody wants to go into a hotel, start off as a housekeeping assistant and change beds the rest of their life. They're looking for something more. How do you then transform so that essentially you're creating the career ladders within the particular industry so that there will always be job opportunities from entry level to incumbent worker improvement?
Thank you.
I just want to reinforce it's a really interesting insight, and for you all, we will follow through on the CAPS, the community action organizations, but anybody else in the room that's interested in being a part of this process that we're trying to pull together this workforce training whole program, and we're interested in having people who bring other perspectives. So where anybody who's interested, let us know.
Commissioner McHugh?
I had a question for Ms. Barbosa, and that is from the gaming operator's standpoint, where did the workers come from? And did they do their own training, or did they rely on the kinds of programs we've been just talking about now?
To answer the first part of your question, they really came from the greater part of Connecticut. And as you know, we were in great competition with the casino across the river. But most of the individuals were from some of the suburban areas surrounding the casino, and then because it is a Native American casino, the preference was Native American hire. So it was a very, very different dynamic. But most of the training came from within. That's why our department was so essential. That's why I talked about that structure of development being access to everyone and being communicated and promoted as such within. So for instance, part of our performance evaluation as leaders was at one point as to how many connections, how many networks do you have in your own community. Pequot Academy, which is what I had been directed to manage, was actually in Norwich. So we prided ourselves in making those strong relationships with places like the Norwich Adult Learning Center and the Community College of Connecticut and some of the many ethnic organizations in the surrounding community to foster a pipeline of information to those individuals so that they would know how to enter the casino and then be successful. That was part of our plight. And not only in working within casino and community, but also in the area of businesses, women-owned businesses, if we were using consultants or for printing or anything that we did as far as the academy was concerned, it was all community-based because we were rewarded based on that initiative. Did that answer your question?
I'm going to go out of order only because one of the questions follows that one. Someone asked regarding retaining talent in casinos. In Foxwoods or Mohegan, so MGM, right? Are they utilizing employee resource groups and INDs? What does IND stand for? Inclusion and Diversity Councils. Okay.
I headed up the diversity program at Foxwoods, not MGM Grant, and the diversity programs really looked at providing representation for the very diverse groups that worked in Foxwoods. So it wasn't just about the different types of food in the cafeteria. It was really about understanding the history and being able to tell each other's story, because that helped. We made the tie to marketing. For instance, we didn't have a great Hispanic population of people coming to the casino, and that was recognized. So we wanted to make sure that we started the promotion and celebration of our Latino workers so that we could help spread the word that this is a comfortable place for you to come. It's not only a comfortable place for you to come and enjoy yourself, but it's a comfortable place for you to come and work, and for your family to come and work there too. And that was very successful.
So, can I?
Sure.
So, are there employee resource groups there that are specifically for women or for people of color that help to retain, provide professional development, feedback, all of those things within the casino? And will we be seeing something like this here?
With the diversity task force was homegrown, and it was from the ground up. So it was more like an affinity group. So and the task force rotated, so any member and any level of employee could be part of that task force, and it rotated. So there was all types of diversity, gender differences, you name it. The casino really was quite a salad bowl of differences.
I also want to address the latter part of your question, which is actually the panelists are not the deciders on sort of what is going to happen in Massachusetts, so they may not be able to, not just your question, but there are some questions here that are directed maybe at the commission. So I'll read them, and if you want to table them and to be responded, let me know. Okay, so, and this is one of them. What do you feel is the best way to work with the advertising and marketing departments in the casinos and their ad agencies? So that was one of the questions thrown out. And I guess as I read that question, I probably should acknowledge, and I think you know, that in this room we have both folks who are looking for opportunities and folks who are going to provide opportunities. And so there's sort of, the questions are reflecting that.
I'm not sure what the question means about working in I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so I think most of the panel has been focused on the underemployed and folks with limited skill sets, and there are folks here who aren't in that category, but who are looking for opportunities. And there's another question in here, actually, if I can skip to it. Well, the essence of the question was, you know, it feels to the person who wrote the question that some of the individuals who are being hired have already been selected, the engineers and architects and things like that. And so what opportunity is there for folks who have skill sets who haven't been at the table, who haven't presented it, or been able to put their foot forward? When will those opportunities be presented and how?
Well, if with the individual, what we're looking to do is figure out how we can set the table, establish requirements, establish principles, establish standards, which our proposers will have to comply with. And what we're looking for is guidance from folks like you in what we can write into our regs and write into our decision-making criteria. For example, the development of having the operators have such a group as you were talking about. Maybe that's something we ought to require. So we're sitting here looking to learn about what we can, because we're going to write the rules of the road. And we need advice on how we can write those rules to induce the kinds of behavior that we're looking for. The jobs, you should be talking to proposers now if you're interested in looking for things now. Who the developers are is a matter of public record. The specific jobs, the construction jobs, which could be as many as 10,000, and the full-time employment jobs, which could be as many as 10,000, are yet to come, and those are where we're looking for help in how we can make those happen.
Commissioner Zuniga?
Yeah, maybe I can speak a little bit to something that Ms. Lang alluded to, but dovetails into what Chairman Crosby is also talking about. I've thought personally about whether the legislation provided for these to be a public bid, and essentially we are giving out a permit with a lot of requirements, but it's not public money that is being that is driving the construction. So it may not necessarily be or have to comply with Chapter 149, for example. However, I believe also that we have all the authority to require the goals that Chapter 149 or construction reform required, and were very successful. And that's areas where we can clearly post in regulations.
So I found the card, and I'm just going to read it because I think it's more articulate than how I just tried to ask the question. The individual said, I'm a principal in a WBE/DBE civil engineering firm. Our feeling is that prior to submission to the Mass Gaming Commission, all the design teams, architects and engineers have been established by the casino proponents. Will there be an opportunity to present our credentials to the casino proponents? It feels like our door is closed. So that's the essence of the question that was asked.
Just for the record, I doubt that the teams are fully formed, first of all. But if anybody has fully formed their teams without knowing what our requirements are going to be, they probably made a mistake. So we will have an opportunity. It's not just on this issue, but a whole host of issues. This is a problem we're wrestling with throughout all of our activities. A number of communities, a number of developers are way down the road, and we're trying to say, wait a sec, the rules of the road aren't written yet, so make sure how far you go down. So there should be opportunities for folks over the coming months to get into the game.
Great, thank
Could
you.
I just
Commissioner
add
Stebbins?
could I just add to that, because the statute is very clear that the application has to list the plans and programs that the applicant for a license has for including minorities, minority business enterprises, women business enterprises, and veteran business enterprises in participation in a whole range of things that they're going to do. And the statute also says that no license can be issued unless the commission is satisfied that those commitments are substantial enough to warrant granting a license. So that has to be an integral part of the plan.
If I may, Commissioner McHugh, I think the one sort of, there's a room for interpretation only in that it doesn't say it has to be Massachusetts-based. And so the idea of imported talent versus local talent, I think, is part of the concern. Andrea, there's a question for you.
That is something that we've thought a lot about, and within reason, we will be trying to make sure that the people who are hired are local, the people who are vendors that are signed up, the unions that are used. We will be trying to. That will be part of our criteria too. And as I said, we have the ability to modify what's in the legislation.
Great.
May I also just
Yes.
add, at DCAM with our advertisement, and I think maybe that may be part of the question, for design, it's 17.9 as a goal, and for construction, it's 10.4. And on the design side, we have found, because that, and those are combined goals, so those are for minority and women businesses going for bids, going for projects. What I have seen is getting people to understand that this is a new opportunity. So although there may be a goal set, you may not want to jump ahead and think that I'm putting a team together, and you don't know what type of team you really need to put together to win the bid. So you may want to definitely begin assembling within the diversity of your company various people who can be able to address various parts of the job that may be offered to you through the bid. And so let's not get it too confused with, well, I've done state, going for state jobs before, and I know this is what they want, because the world is changing. So you might want to understand better what the Gaming Commission is looking for and what opportunities they're going to have, so that you can begin opening yourself up to firms that maybe you didn't open yourself up to before, to people that maybe you did not think about including before. You know, there are many women engineers now. There are many, so what people are shaking their heads, but there have been disparity studies that have shown that. So it's really trying to make sure that we begin connecting those bridges for you, so that later down the road you're better prepared when you see those advertisements with goals associated with them.
Thanks. So if I may, we have about 6 minutes left. And so we're definitely not going to get to all of the questions. There are some that are supplier diversity based that I'm going to pass on to Dr. McKinney. And so I'm going to go to Commissioner Stebbins first.
I have one quick I have a lot of questions, but I'll throw one quick question to Lisa. Is things were ramping up in Connecticut. We've heard anecdotal information of local businesses being cannibalized for their employees. We saw, we heard stories of people jumping, wanting to leave a bank to go to the glamorous world of working in, a cage at a casino. Did you experience that or come across even anecdotal information about that in the Norwich area?
Foxwoods is one of the largest employers in the area and in Connecticut, and certainly there were, because of some of the layoffs and reorganizations, Pfizer, for instance, and you're right, in some of the investment and banking areas, there were people that were jumping ship. The good news is that because the casino is as diverse as the communities around them, there are jobs, in finance. There are jobs that require a certain amount of education in education. There are jobs in collections. So yes, the financial industry probably did take a little bit of a hit, particularly when MGM Grand was opening their doors. But certainly, I think having an organization that provides opportunities for people is not a bad thing. But there wasn't any targeted recruitment efforts or, cutthroat, that I saw anyway, cutthroat approaches to taking people from one organization to another.
I mean, I don't necessarily look at the cannibalization as a bad thing, because I think that creates opportunities
That's right.
behind it.
That's correct.
And we as the commission or the Commonwealth need to be aware of, those new job opportunities that are going to open up for people outside of the casino.
The learning I took away from the casino industry is that it is not recession-proof. A lot of people think because of Hollywood that the whales that come in and they fly in their Learjet and drop $1 million, that's what keeps the casino going. It's actually the little gray-haired ladies who are at the slot machine feeding it with their pension checks that keep it going. And when the cost of gasoline went up and, it hiked up the prices to get there, that the casinos took a hit just like any other business in the recession, and they're still struggling to recover.
I have, I think, what is a quick technical question. Will the purchasing be posted through Compass? Will it be separately set up? Is there a separately set up purchasing department for this? Do you know that answer to that? The RFPs or whatever, the purchasing? That's the question, right? Procurement. Am I using the wrong lingo? So the question on the card says, will purchasing be through through Compass? Will it be through Compass statewide contract? Will it be separately set up through a purchasing department?
I doubt it. I'll make the point again, perhaps, hopefully better, that I doubt this will be a public procurement. The companies, the operators, are a private entity that will hire or would procure their advisors first, the way private operators do. Now there are ways in which we can try to emulate the goals of Chapter 149 and things like that, and be open and I think we will do that. Take steps towards a lot of that. But
Okay.
I doubt it.
I have one last question I would like just one of the panelists to respond to, because we've been talking a lot about identifying the agencies that we think will provide the backbone for training the workforce. So the comment is, why do we always go to traditional CAP agencies, community colleges, WIBs, and public schools? How would you respond to the question about what about people who've dropped out of the school system and are not in community colleges or in these programs?
The notion of coalitions, in my experience, is that they represent probably the most non-traditional grouping of people who specialize not only in terms of the outreach within the communities and within the organizations, but also then the reattachment and the re-engagement. So I am not a fan of one size fits all. It generally means that depending upon what is necessary, that the organizations who do come together are able to moderate what it is they do to achieve the common goal of properly training people for the kinds of job opportunities that are going to be available.
There's an interesting conundrum that we've experienced that whoever asked this question will appreciate. You heard, I think, earlier on that anybody who works for the commission, and for the most part, anybody who works for one of the developers or any of the companies that work for the developers will be licensed. And certainly for our employees and many of the others, to get licensed, you will have to go through a very comprehensive background check. Background check includes CORI and credit, which creates a real problem for a lot of underskilled, underserved audiences that we would like to target for employment. So, it's a serious conundrum, and I don't know what we're going to do to try to figure out how to address it. But, in fact, we've already experienced the consequences of that.
And in fact, and people will now start throwing rocks at me. For many of the program service areas that we provide employment and training, workforce development services, we in fact query all those individuals, and we credit check where for those programs that we need to credit check on. The question is, why do we do that? Because we are in a much better position of advising the individual how to, in fact, correct their situation way in advance of them showing up at the door of a casino operator saying, I want a job. And so can counsel the individuals to say, this may not be a job for you. We had the same experience in the financial services sector. when we did that. The credit checks and the queries that were necessary.
I'm sorry, Mark, you're going to make me fail as a moderator.
Okay, and we had to counsel people, you need to enter a different career area.
All right, so 1 minute or less. Any last points that you want anyone in the audience to hear? Yeah, we can start, Mark, coming down this way.
You need, the commission, employers, educators need to know that there are people that are ready, but people need to step forward and identify themselves, and do that now. This is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a process.
Thank you, Mark.
We heard that diversity is more than gender, racial, or even disability differences. Organizations that really truly want to benefit from having a diverse workforce need to provide the resources, the tools, the access to being a successful employee in a casino. That is truly the foundation of support for diversity.
Thank you, Lisa.
Let us not be the glass ceiling. Let us not create the glass ceiling. Let us make sure that we're keeping the doors open to everyone.
And I just want to thank you for listening to the panel, to also let you know that if you want to learn more about Commonwealth Compact as a workforce initiative on diversity, please see me before you leave. And we have over 260 employers in Massachusetts who participate in what we do. And we're not the answer to everything, but we'd like to give you access to other folks who may be the answer to the thing you're looking for. And thank you to this awesome panel.
Thank you.
Thank you to Georgiana, Andrea, Lisa, and Mark for a wonderful panel. Let me just, a couple of housekeeping matters real quick. We're going to take a break for about 10 minutes because I want to keep us on schedule. So we'll take a 10-minute break. And let me just reinforce one thing. Each panel member that presented here and each panel member that will present on the next panel, they are not offering the answers or the solutions to ensuring the access and opportunity. What they are talking about are some of the answers, some of the solutions that may yet emerge to help individuals find their opportunities, to help the commission help define the best way to find those opportunities. But there may be other solutions that you think of beyond today and that you'll give input into the commission in helping define a playing field that's designed to create real access to opportunity. And so don't anyone think that from what you heard around community colleges and community action agencies, those will be the only two silos in which you must parachute into, because they won't be. Again, this is meant to spur conversation in imagination and creativity to ensuring access and opportunity. You've been great so far. A 10-minute break. We will get started exactly at 10:45. Thank you.